Okay, so question number 5. Is the current job of the president too complex for one person? The president has several official and implied responsibilities that include involvement in 4 major areas. 1, legislative establishment, 2, legislation execution, 3, diplomatic process, and 4, domestic prosperity. Legislative establishment includes how the president has the final say in the enactment of a bill or law. He can veto it, he can pass it through, he can make sure that it becomes a law or not. That's basically one of his major jobs. Legislation execution, again, it's the executive branch. So he is in charge of he is the head of being in charge of making sure that previous laws are upheld as well as new laws are enforced. So he has a very broad responsibility in this. And so many bureaucratic government agencies, such as the FDA and FBI, have been established to aid him in the execution of this job. The diplomatic process that the president holds power in is mostly concerned with foreign relations. For your response to the question that we had recently in class, we talked extensively about this, how the president's power is typically checked by Congress because they have to approve his treaties, but we know that sometimes that checks and balance system isn't always upheld due to the president's executive agreement policies. Domestic prosperity is a loose term that encompasses everything from the economy to schools to social welfare. The president's responsibility for domestic prosperity has a very wide-reaching and impactful influence. FDR was one president of note that took this responsibility incredibly seriously. Through his influence, FDR used the office of the president to establish programs such as the CCC in an effort to jumpstart the then failing economy during the Great Depression. The power he took in maintaining domestic prosperity has had a resounding impact on the country, as many of FDR's programs and policies remain in place today, such as Social Security. So all of the president's responsibilities fall into one or more of these four categories, and to maintain his responsibilities in all of these various tasks and accomplish them well is undoubtedly a very difficult process for a single individual. Therefore, the presidency has established the cabinet and the executive office of the president in order to aid the president in the oversight and operation of the executive branch and his various responsibilities. When George Washington took office, he knew that himself and the next few presidents would be the ones to establish precedent for future leaders. And during the Revolutionary War, especially, George Washington was in charge of many things, obviously the Continental Army being one of them. And while he was in charge of this very large group of people and this very large responsibilities that he had over them, he had a very select group of individuals that helped him in running the army and in accomplishing his various tasks. So when he took the office as the president, he wanted a similar group to aid him in his many duties as the president. And although it wasn't outlined in the Constitution, he felt that it was necessary to ensure that the president was able to accomplish his responsibilities well and thoroughly. So Washington's experience told him that he needed a presidential cabinet. And in so doing, he established the cabinet and also established the precedent that that following presidents would also have a cabinet. In a parallel fashion, then, the executive office of the president, the EOP, was established by FDR in 1939 to ensure that the government and his executive branch ran as smoothly as possible. This was mostly spurred due to the many programs that he put in place during the Great Depression. The cabinet and EOP are prime examples of a president's ability admission to needing help in running the country. However, while the job of president is a complex one, there's no doubt it is, to distribute presidential powers to more than one person would essentially be to appoint more than one person as president. So in the EOP and the cabinet, no one has authority greater than the president himself. And that is in intentional effect to ensure that the framers of the Constitution itself, is upheld, because the Constitution was, it was designed by the framers, and the presidential office was designed by the framers to be a role for a single individual to undertake. And while it is a complex job, it is in effect it's an extraordinary job, and so therefore it requires the commitment of an extraordinary person. And because of this fact, it has to be a single person that is able to comprehend the magnitude and necessity of their responsibilities. The position, while massive in scope, was not one intended to be diluted by more than one individual holding power. It was never intended to have more than one executive leader. And to establish that the job is too complex for one person then would be to admit that there needs to be more than one executive, and that was something that was wholeheartedly denied and disputed by the original framers of the Constitution, and one that could ultimately undermine the executive power of the government.